The enemy is breaking through. The armed forces of Ukraine carried out a spectacular operation near Pokrovsk. A real rout. The occupiers have nowhere to go. The Turkish front is groaning. The Russians have stopped sleeping. Unknown drones are hitting their targets accurately. A powerful roasting. Russia is urgently hiding its planes. All of this in our episode. Hellish Point. The armed forces of Ukraine have halted the Russian advance on the approaches to Pokrovsk. Ukrainian forces dealt a heavy blow to the occupiers. The situation remains tense. Putin's little ones are asking to go home. The hottest section of the front is gradually being cleared of the enemy. However, the tension does not subside. Next, the main points.
This is what Mirnohrad looks like now, where cafes and shops were still operating last summer. And the local residents couldn't have imagined that their hometown would turn into a complete ruin in just 6 months. The Russians are already less than a few kilometers away from residential areas in some places. So everything is flying here from mortar shells to rockets. The shelling doesn't stop for a minute. Because of this, the destruction in the city is simply catastrophic.
21st centuries. The center of Europe. The whole thing is a mess. Softly.
The aviation is not the only disaster. Enemy drones are hunting over the city around the clock. They are hitting both military and civilian equipment. It's almost impossible to escape from them. The engines in the sky here just don't stop.
Our armored vehicle. A Cossack, as you can see from such a drone. This is a Russian FPV drone with an aluminum frame. The armored vehicles weren't saved. Even this anti-drone net. Anti-cumulative. And this car burned down. I hope the guys got out.
Spring cleaning to the sounds of explosions among the ruins of burned equipment. It looks completely surreal. But in this hell, people are trying not only to survive, but also to somehow organize their daily lives.
Yes. I already said yes.
Volodymyr is helping to restore the roof of a neighbor's house. The roof was damaged by a powerful explosion. The man took the slate from the nearby destroyed house. Due to the constant shelling, no construction materials have been brought here for a long time. He doesn't plan to leave Mirnohrad for now.
I'm registered here. That's where they bring my pension. This is my land. This is where I built my life. This is where my grandfather lives in France. So what's the problem with the excess? To whom? The daughters? Send it to everyone. Here, we didn't see that it was like this. The house. It flies and buzzes.
And there are about 3,000 such people in Mirnohrad. It's impossible to determine the exact number of residents, says an officer of the military-civil cooperation of the 38th Marine Brigade. Maxim is constantly persuading locals to move to safer regions. It's pointless there.
In fact, there is a very large number of people who just don't listen. They just sit, wait, and hope someone knows. I apologize, Russian world, for the fact that we are still holding back the enemy. And unfortunately, people are dying. The statistics are very bad. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 people who fall victim to these strikes from artillery, mortars, and such on Tuesdays.
And so, under the cover of night and thick fog, the Marines move through the streets. Mirnohrad. Doing this during the day is many times more dangerous. Enemy drones are everywhere. They also quickly make replacements at the positions, delivering supplies and ammunition. The transport must leave the danger zone before dawn. Since last autumn, the 38th Marine Brigade has been successfully holding the enemy at bay near Mirnohrad and preventing them from advancing into the built-up area. Every new morning here at the front is similar to the one before. The Russians are going crazy from the resistance and generously spice up the Marines' morning coffee with deadly iron. Christ has risen to Europe.
here comes Ostepan. So what do they think of you now? In a checkered pattern, right?
Not happy we won't, I was just joking. They jokingly call their 120mm mortar Orbit, and it's enough to hold off assaults on our front line. However, we often have to work.
683304.
Almost there. Just almost there. Ready.
We're throwing music.
Attention. We're grabbing some quick snacks.
The Russians still have the upper hand in artillery, but the main danger for the mortarmen comes not so much from shells as from drones. Although during the repulsion of the assault, the fighters no longer pay attention to them.
Well, I don't know. Right now they have nothing, let's touch it. Yes, all the time. That one in the half, drop it, whoever wants.
What's up with that sight? Wound up? Let's go.
Well, I'm flying, so yes. Well, if it's necessary, then we work, as always.
Wait. Shot.
Plus accepted. Everyone, take cover.
Alexander is essentially one of the veterans in this unit. The man volunteered to defend the country in March 2022. Behind the Marine is the defense of Donetsk region, the operation in the trenches. And here we are again, in Donetsk region. In peaceful life, Slusar is at war. He is the rightful commander of the mortar. And he doesn't regret his choice one bit.
Yeah, it's tough all around, you could say. What's going on? Both in the trenches and in Kherson, it's tough here too. Because it's the same for her there or here. Like that. If everyone sits around, then what would happen? Absolutely nothing.
And as long as the Marines stand, Myrnorad will stand too.
Slav Kucharski, Vyacheslav Romodan, Oleg Kucharski, Podrobici Intermarathon TV channel Unified News.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
A division of Russian soldiers was taken down near Toretsk. It's hell there right now. The occupiers are stuck and can't break through any further. The front line is on fire. The armed forces of Ukraine are punishing the enemy and showing them where the crayfish hibernate. The most powerful weapons are being brought into play. Bradleys are tearing up the ground beneath them. You simply can't miss these shots. Powerful videos straight from the front lines.
The Russian command has already reported on the capture of Toretsk at least 3 times. In fact, after 8 months of daily attacks, the occupiers have only taken control of half of this settlement, losing at least a division of their soldiers.
I can tell you about the enemy's losses. According to our estimates, around 15,000 irretrievable losses have been inflicted in the city of Toretsk, and about 50,000, possibly more, sanitary casualties.
There is no clear front line here. The positions of the Russians and Ukrainians can be on different floors of the same building. The heroism of the soldiers of the 100th Brigade in Toretsk. It's impossible to describe or even imagine.
With the strumming of guitars, there we were, singing. Hello, unseen. They were leading with fire. On the civilian side, I was listening to this song, and not at home. They are not expecting it here.
Junior Sergeant Oleg Hrankivsky fought against the occupiers in Toretsk for 77 days.
Power banks, batteries, ammo, food, water, everything is being dropped by drones because it's physically impossible to get there.
Oleg is fighting with a trophy AK-12. He took a Russian in battle.
We won. We won this fight and took the weapon.
How many were there?
5.
You?
At that time, there were 2 of us on our feet.
The most dangerous operation is to bring fighters into the city or to take them out of there. These American Bradley infantry fighting vehicles are one of the key elements of our defense in Toretsk. And one among the main factors of our infantry's survival in the destroyed city. This is not only my opinion, but also that of a former infantryman with the call sign Kippish, who happily transferred to the Bradley.
Good. Armor, sturdy. I felt it myself. We were blown up multiple times. We were hit by shells several times. I'm sitting right in front of you now. Alive and well.
Kipish spent many weeks in the positions. So after Toretsk taking the position of the Bradley's gunner, he knows how his comrades are waiting for him, holding the defense in the ruins of the city.
And it starts up just to shoot.
When Bradley enters Toretsk, everything the occupiers have flies over it. Therefore, in order to change infantrymen in positions, the American combat vehicle is covered by artillery and drones. Sometimes if the fire is intense, you have to drive a tank next to the Bradley. Sometimes the tank crews take the fire upon themselves to give the infantry a few seconds to load up into the Bradley.
Sometimes it's not scary at all when you're traveling, but this feeling is a bit like that. When you feel like you're not afraid, it's on the contrary bad. When you're scared, it means everything will turn out well for you.
The crew of this Bradley from the 100th Brigade joined the flash mob of Ukrainian soldiers and recorded a message of thanks to the American people for such armored support.
In fact, we are very grateful to the American people for... They help us. They understand who we are fighting against.
The critics of the U.S. at the front turned out to be American volunteers. A soldier with the call sign Nesty is fighting in the Cartier Brigade. He voted for Trump twice, but now he believes that by pressuring Ukraine, instead of Russia, he has crossed all boundaries because he simply doesn't understand what is really happening here.
Many videos of Russian solutions exist.
There are a lot of video proofs of Ukrainian production captured by Russian soldiers. This is a war crime. Just like attacks on hospitals, residential areas, parks with children. But they're still talking about Zelensky not wearing that damn suit. It looks like they want to make Ukraine the bad guy, but Ukraine is a victim in every aspect, and that's why I'm here.
The fighters we spoke to are indeed also critical of the idea of a ceasefire, even those who have spent months in the ruins. Turkish.
This ceasefire will look like a trap from the opponents. More because he will gather strength. It will be much harder to deal with him than it is now. We're managing, and it's hard right now, but it will get even tougher.
We need a ceasefire. Honest, fair, but true. So that it doesn't happen again, and that it doesn't contribute to strengthening Russia, so they don't regroup.
But how to make Russia establish a ceasefire right now probably no one knows. Neither in the Oval Office, nor in the forest near Kharkiv, nor in the ruins of Andriy Tseplienko, Ilya Shenkarenko, Serhiy Perfilov, TSN Week, OnePulse1, Marathon, Unified News.
For the Russians, March started off extremely poorly. Secret drones are destroying the largest oil refineries, while the occupiers' forces are simply powerless. As a result, fires, detonations, and total panic. The Kremlin can't handle this, but it can't do anything about it either. What is happening on enemy territory after the attacks by unknown drones? Watch right now.
March fires at the Russian oil refinery are non-stop, brought by Ukrainian strike birds.
Blabbering, it literally went boom.
This is how on the night of March 3rd the oil refinery in Ufa was on fire. This is already the next night of flames over the oil refinery in Syzran, Samara region. Our first drones reached the Chuvash Republic and attacked a facility for storing petroleum products. They are located 1,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. March 10th, and again, Samara region. They struck the most powerful facility in the region, the Novokubishevsk oil refinery. The Lhasa facility is one of the main suppliers of fuel for Su-27 and Tu-22 fighter jets. The night of March 11th became bright for the people of Moscow. Trains to Moscow were stopped, and all 3 international airports in the Russian capital were closed. A swarm of Ukrainian drones attacked a number of strategic targets in Russia. The enemy has never seen such a drone strike in its rear. 100 of our shock birds in Moscow and the Moscow region, Kursk, Bryansk, Belgorod, Ryazan, Kaluga, Lipetsk, Oryol, Voronezh and Nizhny Novgorod regions. One of the most critical nodes is the Moscow oil refinery, and this is the processing of 12 million tons of oil per year. More than our slippery friends consume. Hungary and Slovakia together.
This is a strategic enterprise. They are producing the AS-15. They are producing the design of the Valor, part of which has reached Russian targets. Pokrovsk in Russia.
The peculiarity of the attack is not only in the number, but also in which drones were first used. They are not disclosing what these new drones are. Outwardly, strike drones look like Shaheeds, black in color, which makes it difficult for Russian mobile fire teams to operate. The attack took place on the eve of Ukrainian-American talks in Saudi Arabia, so it had more than just a military effect.
The target audiences of the SIA made it clear that the Ukrainian side has scaled up the production of strike drones and is currently capable of deploying them. A sufficient number to paralyze the oil refining industry of the Russian Federation. And secondly, this again enhances the agency of the Ukrainian side in the negotiation process.
On the night before the Russian-American talks and Osti Vitkov's visit to Moscow, there was another attack. Drones targeted the Saratov, Voronezh, Kaluga and Rostov regions. According to our sources, in the Kaluga region, they hit a facility disguised as a concrete plant that was producing drones.
These are the so-called Geranium-2, the Russian equivalent of Iranian Shaheds.
Just after Vitkov left, the Russian capital region was hit again from the sky.
Here it is! This is a starter!
The attack was less powerful, but we reached the very heart of Moscow, the Garden Ring and Kutuzovsky Avenue, which is the route Putin takes from his residence in Novo Ogaryovo to the Kremlin.
Of course, they are lacking high-precision artillery. Plus, we'll cover all the esoteric objects partially selected, 3 transparent tower. Already, they were transferred to Moscow. On the 5th of this month, which was a significant day, we started to feel the impact of the war.
Last week, they attacked the only oil refinery on the Black Sea coast and one of the 10 largest in Russia, Avtopsek.
Oh no, we've been hit again! Once more!
Just so you understand, it's literally hot even here.
He's just already done.
According to our sources in the security services, the SBU drone struck a missile storage facility for the S-300 and S-400 systems in the Belgorod region, as well as several gas compressor stations. The next night, our drones targeted the Volgograd oil refinery. Since the beginning of March, Ukrainian drones have targeted nearly a dozen oil refineries.
This is not a show of force. This is a fair and absolute response to what Russia is doing to us. To any strike, no matter how powerful it is, whether it's on our territory or something else, from an empire, you think of yourself as one. You will always get a response from such countries like Ukraine.
Striking at Russian oil refineries directly impacts the battlefield.
The systematic nature of these strikes has led to a reduction in additional enemy equipment in the east. The enemy has switched over, essentially to various types of ATVs, divided into such assault groups. Right now in the east, we have managed to halt the enemy on most sections.
In addition, after numerous attacks on refineries, Russia, which has always traded fuel, not only imposed a ban on gasoline exports, but also began to buy it itself. So, instead of earning, they are spending currency.
Out of 16% of oil refineries in the Russian Federation, either the production process has been halted or they have suffered serious damage.
The Ukrainian killer drone is going out to hunt. It replaces 3 soldiers on the front. In the Russian Federation, they say that their end has definitely come now. Yes, Putin's army has never cried out in fear so powerfully. The occupiers' commanders are throwing up their hands. The armed forces of Ukraine are already on high alert. It will be a fierce clash. What results can be achieved thanks to the latest weaponry? We'll tell you more about this later.
The final adjustment. The soldiers are firmly securing the machine gun and grenade launchers, and the Gnome 2 is ready for its first fire tests. The control system for this robot is no different from that of aerial FPVs. The drone is equipped with cameras so that the soldier can see where he's going and his target. Everything is displayed on the screen of the control panel. Commands are given from here.
I've actually held this remote in my hands for the second time in my life, and the drone more or less obeyed, though a little with certain delays. Well, I need to learn the equipment. I think anyone can learn to skillfully operate this technology in just a few weeks.
You can insert a machine gun and 2 RPGs. Each RPG will have 1 shot, after which they need to be reloaded. Well, and you put in the belt and you're good to go, whether in a line or solo.
Yuri, originally from Vilnyansk in Zaporizhzhia, voluntarily joined the armed forces 5 months ago. In civilian life, he's an auto electrician. These skills came in handy in the military as he was the one improving the drone.
I was working on a system to make it more compact. It was designed to fit anywhere, so you could move from point A to point B. But not only did they do that, they also created a system descent. It worked better.
Drones of various modifications are currently irreplaceable on the front lines. They make the heavy daily work of the military easier.
This robot actually replaces the workload of 3 people. Like, if you use it to its maximum capabilities, it's a very practical thing. If we have to risk the lives of military personnel, then it will be easier. If you set up a piece of metal, it would hit the target. The war is changing very rapidly, and drones are a priority today.
Drones are life, drones are our great helpers.
Due to the activity of enemy eyes in the air, dangerous fiber-optic drones, it is becoming increasingly difficult for our soldiers to protect themselves. That's why we need drones, and as many as possible, so that the military can operate and eliminate the enemy from cover.
In fact, today there is a huge demand in the Ukrainian army for robotic systems that will somewhat replace people. Because you are in Zaporizhzhia, you probably know the situation. The hardest part is actually getting to the position and coming back from it.
Russian invaders are not giving up on their attempts to advance even a centimeter in the Zaporizhzhia direction, say the defenders. To stop the enemy, our soldiers need help. Besides the technology, there are also people who will operate it. Kira Oves, Andrei Kupovka, Zaporizhzhia, TSN 1+ Marathon. The only news?
The first landing in Crimea during the full-scale invasion, the raids on the Energodar, and the invasion of the Bryansk region. And that's just what we can talk about. This battalion is tearing apart the occupiers. The Russians fear them like fire. They carry out incredibly complex operations, disappearing without a trace and unnoticed by anyone. It's lightning fast. All the details about the work of the Ukrainian Titans. You will find out right now. Our Father.
Let your kingdom come, let your will be done. And
God is always on our side. We always pray before operations and know that it is only through God that all these operations can be carried out and perhaps even accomplished. When something very complicated is needed, we take part in it. Very complicated, then we take part in this. Where you need to show not just agility and strength, but you need to do some kind of trick that it will allow us to bypass the enemy's defenses, deceive the enemy, and overcome the enemy.
From the southern shores to the most challenging points in the eastern north. During the full-scale invasion, the Brotherhood has been everywhere.
Starting from water operations on the water, from landings in Crimea, only Timur's center was able to organize a landing in Crimea. And it was our unit and some adjacent units from Timur's center. This is sabotage work deep into enemy territory over long distances. This deep into all of this, very specific assault actions that have a very dangerous nature.
In September, in 2022, the Ukrainian airborne troops landed for the first time on the shores of the Kakhovka Reservoir near Enerhodar. And there have been many operations like this, as the commander says.
That's when we first realized that miracles are possible, that the enemy isn't as strong as we thought. And that's us. Then we confirmed it many times. And we landed and successfully carried out operations. Although there were also tragedies, our own. Most of them were very successful operations. There, on the contrary, I was amazed at how unprotected the enemy was and how possible it is. If I were to carry out those operations now, well, we would be very serious about it. The damage was done to the enemy because there was no such experience at the time. And then it got to the point where the fighters were walking 50 meters from the observation post where the enemies were.
There was also a landing in Crimea, which during planning, few people believed would happen. However, in the summer of the 23rd, Ukrainian fighters covered a distance of 200 kilometers in only one direction.
When they were going to Crimea, she disappeared. Communication. Any communication was lost. GPS navigation. They had to go by the stars. It was just a unique miracle that one of the commanders leading the group was able to orient himself and make a decision about what he was going to do.
During the special operations, the fighters damaged 4 fast boats and destroyed at least 3 dozen Russians.
The guys completed the mission. They definitely had to return. Enemy Raptors came out to block the retreat, and a thick fog rose in the morning, which gave them the opportunity to retreat.
The Brotherhood 1st Battalion has moved the confrontation with the occupier onto the territory of the Russian Federation. During one of these operations on December 25, 2022, a sabotage group consisting of Maxim Mikhailov, Yuri Horovets, Taras Karpyuk, and Bohdan Liahov. They carried out a deep raid with a secret mission in enemy-controlled territory where they fought their last battle.
They passed the first stage super and reported that they crossed the first border, the mini obstacles, and the observation posts. We were confident that everything was going as it should. And when I was told in the morning that the Russians claimed they had destroyed a group, I thought, no, that can't be our group. And then they told me, no, there are photos. I'm being sent photos where our fighters are lying. Yes, it was. It hurts a lot. It really hurts. It hurts a lot. And they returned the bodies. The packages were labeled DRG, and these fighters. And the Russians did everything possible to make it difficult to identify the fighters. What happened?
During the full-scale invasion, the battalion participated not only in sabotage operations. Fighting took place in various areas of the front.
It was harder in the Donetsk region, but again, perhaps this is due to the fact that the tasks there were very difficult. So this was during the defense of the road to Bakhmut. These were very tough battles, and we lost a lot of fighters there. It really required extraordinary courage just to go towards the machine guns, to face the enemies who were very close. And these were such very fierce battles, the biggest.
Behind such operations, first and foremost, are the people who carry them out. Enthusiasts with a fighting spirit and romantics, says Oleksiy.
People are making feats of a completely different kind. Students and grandfathers are making feats. They criticize the fathers, saying it's just old men there. These grandfathers are really cool. You just look at them. I had many grandfathers like that from whom we learned. It's not some super special forces that are waging war. It's people like this. That's why we select such spirited people, ordinary folks from the people. And these are people, the army relies on them.
Karina Podlinko, Pavlo Kondratenko, Maxim Kondratenko, Rada TV channel. To sum up, the main thing is unified.
That's all from me. It was me, Karina Hutsakalo. Even more hellish news from the front in our next episode. Well, in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. See you